Of course, stuff never breaks when it's nice and warm out. 25 degrees and snowing, and that's always when stuff decides to break. How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel, Make Money Trucking. And today we're going to be replacing the starter on my Coronado, because obviously it decides to go out when it's 25 degrees outside and snowing, but such is life. So first things first, open up your battery box and disconnect all your negative battery terminals and set them aside so you don't have no power, since the starter does a lot of volts feed the starter. So I just put a rag on one side of the terminals and then a piece of cardboard so they can't connect, and double check that I have no power, and I have no power. Alright, so if you go on the passenger side of the truck, follow the frame rail just below the turbo and the heat shield in here, and your starter lives down there. And I've been actually cleaning it with some brake clean and wiping it off, because I got some, I guess, oil runoff. You can see right there on the connections, on the front connections. So basically on the back here, there are 3 bolts that connect it to the actual flywheel and bell housing. Alright guys, so we're underneath the truck. Here's the starter. And what we need to do is we need to unbolt these bolts hanging, holding the power lines going into the actual starter. There's like there's one up here, 2, 3, and then we need to do this so that we can actually, once we unbolt the starter, we can bring it down. And then next, I am unbolting this bolt here and the one on top of the starter by the solenoid. So here we are on top of the starter. I finally got the nut pulled off of this guy right there, if you can see it. That was a pain. So then we'll undo these lines. And there's also a connector down there we need to undo. The connector's this guy right here. So this guy right there, so make sure you don't forget that, because if you pull it out, you'll damage that wire and sensor. Alright, so we got all the main power lines off and just pushed over to the side, and kind of just hanging out of the way. Don't forget the connector. We got the connector undone. So next, what we have to do is, there's a bolt, there's 3 bolts that basically hold this starter on. There's one right there, and there's the other one right there, and the other one's on the top. So we will unbolt the 3 bolts and remove the starter. Alright guys, so we got the old starter pulled out. So there was a wire, a ground wire on the top. Don't forget to undo that, because that I stretched that pretty bad when I pulled the starter out. So we have the new starter up there. Basically what we're going to do, so there's where the new starter will sit. It's kind of a pain to get it up in here. Here's your leaf spring, and here's the passenger side of the motor for reference. So you're just gonna have to squeeze it up in there, and make sure you have all your wires pushed out of the way so that nothing can get snagged when you're trying to put the starter up in this hole, in this slot. So I've got all my ground wires up and out of the way as far as I think, or I hope, and then we'll get the new one in place. Alright, so here's the new one. Just wanted to show you real fast. So I'm going to put it on the ground and then gonna feed it up from the bottom. There's no way to put it in through the top. On my Century over there, you can actually feed the starter from above the frame rail and kind of go in and down. On this model, you have to go from the bottom up. So we'll go ahead and get that in real fast. All right, so we got this up in here. I got 2 bolts on, one right there, and then one right there. I got 2 bolts, just put those on, and then we'll work on getting the top bolt, and then we'll go from there. This actually, if you sneak it through these 2 studs right here, go all the way up and then come back down, it wasn't too hard to get it back up in there. Alright, so we're back. The starter's in place. I've got one more wire I need to run, and so I wanted to give you guys a heads up. That bolt down there is a pain in the butt to get. That's probably one of the hardest bolts to get, because you can't really fit in here very well. You can't reach all the way back there. So if you have your socket, go ahead and put I used a magnet and kind of fished it through down there to get a hold of that and to get it screwed back on. All right, so to undo the top lines here, I wanted to show you that you're gonna need a wobble socket. This is a 19 millimeter. I just bought this from AutoZone or any auto parts store, and this is gonna help you to get that bolt right there a lot easier than because if you use a straight socket and a straight extension, it ends up running into this guy here. So this really helps to access that. All right, so we just put all the battery terminals back on and put the step back on. I went ahead and started the motor, and we walked around both the driver's side and the passenger side and made sure that there was, you know, no arcing, sparking, no weird noises or smells, and everything's good. The batteries are charging, all the systems are working, and it started. So we checked everything, make sure it all looks good, and then last thing we got to do is put this panel back on, or this splash guard type of fender back here. There's just 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts that hold that, and then that'll be all. So this was on a scale of 1 to 10 as far as difficulty. The job is very easy, but just because of how hard it is to access some of that stuff, and that side of my motor is pretty oily, because I need to replace the oil pan gasket because it's leaking on this side. For me, it was about a 6 or a 7. It was a pain in the butt. It wasn't the hardest thing I've done, but if there wasn't all the oil and mess to contain with, I say it would be about a 4 to do. So all right guys, well, there is a how-to on how to replace your starter on your this is a 2011 Freightliner Coronado with a DD15. So comment down below if you guys found similar jobs to this one to be just as difficult as I did, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Have a good one.